Okay, I want to welcome you to the October 12th meeting of the Placer County Planning Commission. And so to start things off, could you join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, well, we'll start off with a roll call.
Okay, sorry about that. Mr. Arcuri. Mr. Haber.
Here.
Mr. Okuchi.
Here.
Mr. Nader.
Here.
Mr. Sevison. Mr. Moss. Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, report from the planning director.
Good morning, Commissioners. Z. Givaldi with the Planning Services Division. As you can see, we have a live video feed going from Tahoe. We wanted the opportunity for the folks in Tahoe, whoever didn't want to come down to Auburn, to participate in this meeting. So we have a large screen behind you, which you can see. I don't see anybody in the audience, which I'm hoping we would have some folks there. We will also be able to display them on the big screen in front of us. And then on the individual screens that you have in front of you, any speakers were displayed on there also. So there's always a lot of logistics that go into that, getting everything set up. Jeremy Kelly and Greg Courier and their team are always the ones that put that together. It's never an easy task because I watch these guys behind the scenes, but they do an incredible job. So I just want to thank both of them for and their team for putting that together today. So last week the Board of Supervisors had a meeting last Tuesday, and they considered the Water Efficiency Landscape Ordinance. That project was approved unanimously as recommended by the Planning Commission. They also considered the secondary dwelling unit zoning text amendment. That item was continued. The board directed staff to look at revised language to remove the owner occupancy requirement for either a residential unit on site and to disallow any simultaneous short-term rental of both units. So what does that mean? So what would be allowed is the owner could occupy either unit and also have a either short-term or long-term unit. A property could have two long-term rentals on the site, but there could not be a simultaneous short-term rental of both units. So what staff is doing now, we're revising the language. We're going to bring that back to the Board of Supervisors on October 24th for their consideration. Any questions? I made that sound really simple, but there's so many different scenarios. That was kind of the easiest way to explain that.
Is there a way we can get a printed copy of that?
So yes, once the staff report's available, which I think is going to be fairly soon, probably next week, and draft language, we can get that to you.
Well, at TRPA a couple of days ago, we discussed the quick rental thing, RBIs or whatever they're called, and we had a room full from the whole basin. And it finally boiled down to, I guess at the end I made a comment that Placer County's got a different problem than the rest of the Tahoe Basin people, because we have Squaw Valley and Martis Valley and all these other places that are going to get it lumped into the same rules. And so I says, I think that the position for Placer County that I can only envision is that we have to either be set aside, or TRPA has to get out of that business and let the locals decide for themselves how they want to deal with it. And that was pretty much the conclusion that I rendered out of that. So I don't think at this point that TRPA is going to take a stand on short-term renters. If that's of any information, any value, I just can't see how we can have all these different standards for every little community, and it's impossible to manage. So I don't know whether that helps you any or makes it worse, but
Well, I would anticipate probably another healthy discussion when this goes to the board with a new language. So it'll be interesting to see what the conversations are.
Thank you.
Let me see, just so I'm not confused. I think if I remember right, one of the units had to be occupied by the owner,
Correct.
and then they could do
The primary dwelling, correct.
right. And so the other one they could do what they wanted with, right?
Right, exactly. That was the
Okay.
recommendation to the Board of Supervisors.
And so now what they're saying is it doesn't have to be occupied by the owner as long as they're both occupied by long-term renters?
That could happen. An owner could reside in one unit, and it was mentioned that they didn't want to be limited to which unit the owner lived in, whether it was a secondary or the primary. So that was one option, and so the alternate unit could be rented out short-term or long-term.
Okay.
If the owner did not live on site, there could be 2 long-term rentals.
But not short-term.
But the concern of everybody was that they did not want 2 short-term rentals at the same time.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So looking at our upcoming Planning Commission schedules, our next meeting in a couple weeks is October 26th. That's going to be in Tahoe. We'll meet here at 8 o'clock and then drive up there for those folks who are coming from the valley. And we'll start up there at 10 o'clock. 2 items on there. We have 1 appeal that's going to be on that agenda. We also have, we're also going to accept comments on the Alpine Sierra subdivision draft EIR at that meeting. And tonight, that project, there's going to be a brief update on that project at the North Tahoe Regional Advisory Council. That's at 6 o'clock at the North Tahoe Event Center in Kings Beach tonight. That's just an information item. Then we're still on target to have a November meeting on November 9th and December 14th. So those are still a go. Both of those right now would be down here in Auburn. Then the last thing I have is just an announcement. There's going to be a public workshop held on October 18th to solicit input from the community on the Truckee River Corridor Access Plan. The county is coordinating with the U.S. Forest Service to construct a multi-purpose trail extending from Squaw Valley into Truckee. Crystal's going to be talking a little bit more about that during her long-range planning update today. So that meeting is going to be held from 4 to 6 p.m. at the U.S. Forest Service conference room in the Truckee Ranger District. And again, that's on October 18th, next week. And that concludes my report.
I'm sorry, the November meetings, or what days?
November Planning Commission meeting is going to be on November 9th.
Second, yes, I got it, okay, great.
Okay.
So we'll make sure we have quorums for both
EJ,
those
you may be
meetings.
aware of this, but the Board of Supervisors, I believe, is going to hold a special meeting on November 14th, and I think it may be in this room, to discuss the shelter issue, not just here in Auburn, but countywide. And the facilities people are really kind of looking for direction from the board of what to do.
And I'm not aware of that meeting. I'm not sure if council has any. If you're aware of a meeting on the board meeting on the 14th. This is a Board of Supervisors meeting.
It would be a board meeting, and they're going to have it in their normal meeting, like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They're adjourned for dinner, and then they will reconvene here at probably 6 o'clock or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that meeting.
Okay, that's, 2 supervisors told me that, so I assume that's going to happen.
Well, they know a whole lot more than I do. So,
Well, I
we'll
wanted
check it.
you to know, but I also wanted the public to know.
Sure,
because
absolutely.
The homeless issue has been such a hot issue in this county that now it's going to be kind of broadly addressed by the board and what they're going to do, what the next moves are.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else? All right, very good.
Okay, thank you. Let me see, at this time, we'll open it up for public comment. Anybody out there that has a public comment about any item that's not on today's agenda, you can step forward.
I just have a question. Jane Negri, what constitutes a long-term rental? How many years?
You know, I'd have to ask staff to answer that one.
So my understanding, a short-term rental is 30 consecutive days or less. So I would assume long-term rental would be anything longer than that. Crystal's in the audience. I know there may be specific language in the Tahoe area plan. Same. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, with that, we'll go to the consent agenda, but we do have one of our members here that would like to say something first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to have to recuse myself on the consent because the second item on the consent, Mr. LaDuca represents that party, and he was generous enough to contribute to my campaign for city council less than a year ago. November 4th, I'll be able to act on most of the items before us, but I will exit outside in case you guys need to discuss that.
Okay, so, yeah, well, I guess we need to pull it from the agenda then to pass the rest of the consent agenda. And so, am I correct?
I don't believe so that you have to pull that from the agenda.
I don't have to?
No.
Okay, so at any rate, we don't have to, so far, we don't have anybody that's suggesting that we. So far, we don't have anybody recommending that we pull it from the agenda. Anybody from the public? Okay, not seeing anybody that's raising a finger or anything.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call.
Okay, I have a motion by, that was Mr. Moss, and a second by Mr. Nader. So Mr. Arcuri? Yes. Mr. Haber?
Yes.
Mr. Rokuchi has recused himself. Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Sevison?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
And Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Let me see. Good, we got good timing. The next item is the Wood Vista redevelopment plan. And let me see. This is going to be Alan.
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
Thank you, commissioners, public, and staff. My name is Alan Bruch. I am the project planner for the item for Wood Vista redevelopment. It is a vesting tentative subdivision map, conditional use permit, and variance. There is a mitigated negative declaration that is part of this project. There is an errata associated with it, and the reason for that, there's some minor technical changes on the service district's purveyors. North Tahoe Public Utility District area, unfortunately, we had on there Placer County Water Agency. So that's clarified in there. We will be asking for action on that errata to clarify some of that. This particular project, it's in Tahoe. It is in between Kings Beach area and Tahoe Vista. Get everyone oriented. This is Highway 28 right here. The project is outlined in the yellow. Kings Beach Safeway is located here. It is surrounded by single-family development up towards the north. It includes single-family homes as well as multifamily. You can see condominium project down in the lower left here. I do want to point out, it will be a large discussion on this particular item. It is where the highway is located in relationship to this particular project. You can see it is somewhat of a blind corner right at this location. It is a corner lot as well, so you do have traffic coming out of here at that location. The zoning, it is appropriate for what is being proposed as 7 condominium units. It does allow up to 24. They are proposing 7. In the red, you will see there is the mixed-use North Tahoe East zoning, and to the north is single-family development zoning. So the site itself is approximately an acre. The lots were created in 1926. The location is 265 Beach Street. It is one parcel with 7 lots. Originally, the site was developed as a hotel with 16 units back in the 1950s. There is a caretaker's unit and swimming pool. Currently, the site is unoccupied. The owner does, however, occupy the caretaker unit that's there, but all the hotel-motel units are unoccupied. And in fact, back in 2010, one of the structures was demolished and a new project came in, and there's a foundation there now, which I'll show you in some other slides here. Some of the discussion about this particular site, obviously it is an infill project. It is something in our current Tahoe Basin area plan appropriate at this location. It does talk about community plan improvements, so we have been talking to the applicant extensively about it. There are conditions in there, specifically condition 24, where it talks about adding the sidewalks, street trees, street lighting. Because it is a corner lot as well, they will be required, we're proposing to have them do the improvements on both sides, on Beach Street as well as Highway 28. With the discussion with this particular project, Liberty Energy is in the process of undergrounding the overhead utilities. And we've been somewhat unique with this particular condition because we want to be flexible with the applicant. They're trying very hard to get some of the construction going as soon as possible. So we were not quite sure exactly when they're going to start undergrounding the utilities. So we've conditioned them as it goes forward that the undergrounding would happen, and then they would come back and do the other improvements that they are required to do. But this gives an idea of the existing conditions. Here's the caretaker unit. This particular unit will stay as is. This is in the back. This is what we can call in the staff report as well as on the site plan, Building C. And here's the existing pool that's at this location. As you can see, the overhead utilities. This is the 2010 construction that started, and it ceased because of the economic situation. So they got the foundation only through their entitlements, and that was it. The applicant did provide some improvements on Beach Street, fire hydrants, as well as other utilities. So the conditional use permit, what staff is asking for the Planning Commission to do is approve a conditional use permit for a planned residential development for up to 7 residential condominium units and common open space. It will convert the single-family caretaker unit. It will construct 2 additional buildings, each one of those having 3 condominium units. There is a variance associated with the project. The variance is for a fence along the front of Highway 28. The rationale for that, we do have staff support for that. We're recommending approval because there is a pool at that location, so that is to prevent unauthorized access into the pool area. The applicant is also proposing a vehicle gate. Staff has reviewed this extensively also. We have concerns with that. We looked at our new area plan. We didn't see anything in there saying that this was a good idea, basically, because we want to make sure that the community is walkability, is open and accessible. The applicant has said there's some concerns there because people will use their property for turnaround. We obviously looked at that, and we looked at other properties around there. We didn't see the necessary need for a gate at that location because anybody can turn around almost anywhere on somebody else's property too. Why this specific one? We just could not make a rationale for that. This is the site plan. This is the caretaker's unit. Here's Highway 28. The fence is along here for the variance. The gate is at this location. It is 10 feet from property line, but there is a 20-foot setback. That's what requires the variance. They need a 20-foot setback before the gate is started there. Also, we had correspondence from Caltrans as part of the packet. There were some collisions at this location. We did condition the project for line of sight to remove some of the vegetation here and provide better accessibility. The applicant is proposing this being one way, though. You'd come in off Highway 28 and circle around and then come out on Beach Street at this location. They do have carports right there. There is boat parking here. And again, that was some of our concern when we initially saw the project for the gate, because you could potentially have 2 vehicles towing boats at the same time, trying to get in here at that location, and again, it would be concerns to staff to have that at that location. Number 1, for the variance, and number 2, we just don't see it in the area plan as having a gated community within this area. This is a visual sim of what it would look like. There were some comments we did have from Ellie Waller, was talking about the fence specifically, aesthetically. It is a a mixture. It does have the stone at the first 3 feet. And I do want to point out, we do allow a 3-foot high fence within the front setback. It does not require a variance. So the variance requirement is actually for the wrought iron on top. So they're to provide that 6 feet for the safety reasons for the pool. But this is the visual to get an idea of what exactly it looks like. It's not a solid wood, not a solid wood fence. It's not a solid wall. It's actually something aesthetically that blends into this area. And it does have staff support. So the general plan zoning consistency, as I mentioned there, it does meet the current zoning to allow a conditional use permit for condominium project. It does allow additional condominium units, but we are limiting it to 7 as the applicant requested. The area plan improvements, you'll hear from the applicant, that is something where we disagree in with regards to how much community plan improvements is required. They are in agreement along Highway 28, but they're concerned about Beach Street, how much improvement is there. Staff is recommending that Beach Street is part of that community plan area, which it is one project area. Unfortunately, it is a corner lot, but it is required in our area plan to provide those improvements. The variance to the fence, as mentioned, we are in support of the fence itself, but the gate also is something the applicant is feeling strongly to have for security reasons at this particular location, but in our staff report and recommendation to the commission is to deny the vehicle gate. So with that presentation, I do have the recommendations here if you so believe that you want to take action on the project after the applicant. There was one minor thing. I know Sarah approached me on one of the conditions just to clarify. We would like that read into the record.
Thank you. It's a minor change on condition 27. Pull that up. If you actually look at the end of 28, there is an entire paragraph about the applicant's opportunity to request a design exception request, and that's an exception to the standard design. And that paragraph that starts with the applicant may request a design exception request to deviate slightly the minimum amount from the standard, and then continues on. That should also be copied in 27. And we had agreed with the applicant that would be copied up there. And it just didn't make it in the final version. So we'd like to read that into the record.
I do have a question. That's
FC, was your microphone on, or maybe it's just me this morning?
I believe that it's on.
Huh?
Yeah.
This item 27, or
Yeah.
Condition 27.
The same wording needs to be
The same wording needs to be copied from the end of 28 also to 27.
This needs to also be up here on 27.
Oh, okay.
That same thing. Yeah, same language.
All right, thank you.
oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Morning, Alan.
Morning.
You referenced it earlier about how the road sort of bends there and it's kind of a blind corner.
Yes.
And as you know, we did get a letter and some concern related to both pedestrian and I guess traffic as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is not going to generate a lot of traffic because it's a pretty small development, but I'm sure you took that into consideration. But how would you address the pedestrian issue? I mean, they seem to be concerned about people getting access across the roadway. So where's the nearest spot for them to do that safely?
Let me go back to it's a good question. Let me get to the aerial here. The only marked, and I guess I'd almost have to ask our engineering too, the only marked area that I'm aware of is actually clear over here where the park is.
Kind of where Safeway, Larry's
Yeah,
Safeway.
where Safeway is located. I'm unaware, I'm pretty sure, I do not know of any other marked crossway to get across there at that location.
I'm sure you looked at the traffic issues.
Yes.
And do you see that there's really an issue for, since they're doing just a right in and not a left out, at least, not into the development on Beach Street, they could do a left out, obviously. Do you see this as a real issue or not?
For vehicle traffic coming
on
in?
the vehicle side. Sorry.
We did talk to the applicant. It does have in our area plan where it talks about one-way traffic coming and going, and it is discouraged to have it come coming in off the highway is actually, it's encouraged to have it come out off the property onto the highway.
Why? Because rather than Beach Street.
Right, it's just the way that the design is for it. It's just because if you're queuing up and there's cars coming here trying to come in, it's blocking the traffic that's coming. And we've, again, had concerns because there is boat parking proposed, and if we do just by chance have two at that same time and the gate's closed and they're trying to come in, it's going to cause some problems.
Because I take it there isn't sort of a lane or an area where they can kind of pull off of the highway there enough so they can get out of traffic while they're trying to get in?
That's I'm going to ask engineering on.
No, not per se. And that's my understanding of the purpose. It's referenced on page 5 in your staff report. That the basin area does encourage, do not require, that new projects take traffic off of the highway at county roads so that they meander off the county roads, more of a collector system, so you have less people exiting the highway. It's not required, and this is an infill project.
So your preference would be that they come in off of Beach Street and also go out on Beach Street?
I think all things being equal, yes. It is written in such a way that it's more of a suggestion than a requirement. And this is certainly the circulation they're proposing is consistent with the existing circulation. There's no additional traffic. There's no traffic fees. So staff made the call that we weren't going to require that, though we did suggest it as an option.
Okay.
Alan, could you put up slide 9? Just it shows a better depiction of the site. And there you go.
Yeah, I can turn down these lights a little bit too. I'm not sure. Oh, they're on or off? I try to help.
Dark. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I do have Andrew Ryan, the applicant is here.
Yeah, well, we'll let the applicant address that too.
Well, he's, well, I'll catch him my next time.
Okay, we'll let the applicant step forward.
Hello,
Introduce
Commissioners.
yourself.
Good morning. I'm Andrew Ryan from PR Design and Engineering, representing the owners, Patrick and Pam Pinyuve. With me, I have Bruce Carrad, who is representing the owners today, as they could not make it today. Some of you may remember me from a couple of years ago. I came to this commission here about this time of year with the Tahoe Beachfront Residences project. We just recently won a Best in the Basin award for that. So we're hoping to do the same with this project as another redevelopment within the Kings Beach Town Center. So there's our project team. I've introduced myself. It is a mom and pop redevelopment. It is two individuals, a married couple from Reno, Nevada, that have owned this property since about 2008. Local surveyor, and then local designers and architects as well. Alan kind of oriented everybody, I think, with where our project is located, the Wood Vista redevelopment project, and I think he did a good job describing the uses. On the north side of Highway 28 is essentially all residential, single-family homes. As you move east, you have Placer County DPW, Lonza's, and then Safeway. To the south of Highway 28 is similar use, condo redevelopment. We are within the Kings Beach Town Center, and we're also in an area of the Kings Beach Town Center that is called Transition Overlay. That overlay is intended to provide a transition from single-family residence to more commercial, and it's part of the reason that the scale of our project is 7 units. We feel that fits in with the character of single-family residential. Our allowed density is as much as 25 units per acre, and we're only proposing 7 on this site, and they're 2-story as well, which also we think is a good transition with the surrounding character of single-family residence. Alan did mention it was 1953, was the original build for the Wood Vista Lodge. Other than having one building demolished, it is very much the same, and it is an outdated model. It is too small to be competitive as it is presently built. It needs a change to become part of a more modern North Lake Tahoe. It was 16 original units with about 10 parking stalls, more or less. The subdivision map is the Wood Vista subdivision, and Alan's correct, that's 1926 for that subdivision. And I know we'll be talking about egress and access and Beach Street. And I always like to remind everybody that nobody in this room was there when those decisions were made. When that tentative map came forward, the Board of Supervisors approved that map, and those lots are smaller than most places, and they come with challenges. And so we all have to work together to try to get some turnover and new investment in North Lake Tahoe. We've been working collaboratively with staff, and we're down to just a few items that we'll talk about today. So I feel pretty good about that.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Sure.
You're talking about let me see, it sounded like in 2008 there was a start on a change that was happening there. Is that the one you're talking about that was approved?
No, I'm talking about the original subdivision map that oriented the right-of-way at 30 feet, the angle of the lot along Highway 28. That subdivision was recorded long ago.
That would be the 1929 or
26, yeah.
26, okay.
And with that comes some challenges. It's not a modern subdivision that meets all modern codes. It's a prehistoric in some way version of a subdivision, and that's one of the challenges with projects in North Lake Tahoe is how do we apply today's codes to something that was created in 1926. And it's why I think a lot of projects ask for variances and ask for a gray interpretation of a black and white code.
Okay.
I think Alan pointed out these structures pretty well. This is the foundation that is in. This is looking to the south. That's the Unit 1 that will remain. And then this is the building that will be demolished if we are successful and move forward with this project. This is Highway 28 where it fronts. You can see curb and gutter. That was part of a Caltrans improvement project that went in, I think, 2010, where they came and did curb and gutter and put in new driveway aprons at existing egress points. So that is functional and it exists and is part of a recent project. This is the existing pool area that will be refabbed. Of course, the Wood Vista Lodge. We have a lot of folks that would like that sign. It's one of the neater, more retro signs in the area. And then our site plan as well. We are proposing the one-way egress onto, into the property off of Highway 28. We'll have a Caltrans apron. We have been through 2 reviews with Caltrans for encroachment. We feel that we are just about there with all items that are in our proposal, which includes the gate. One of the items on the gate is that it's now moved back from 30 feet from edge of traveled way. So edge of travel way is actually the white stripe that separates the vehicular travel way from the bike lane. And we'll be 30 feet, that's what we're proposing, 30 feet from that stripe to our gate, which is acceptable to Caltrans. We think we're going to be achieving their encroachment permit, and also to North Tahoe Fire. They've both reviewed that and said it isn't acceptable.
Let me see a question. I think it was mentioned a little bit earlier that this is only a right. You can only go in from the right, or can you go in from both right and left?
From Highway 28?
Yeah.
So there is a center turn lane, shared turn lane, so people will be able that are eastbound traveling to enter the center shared turn lane and then make a left turn into the project.
So either way they can go
Correct, yes. Okay. And then they would continue through, exit onto Beach Street, and then here, which is already egress point or entering point to Highway 28 of the other residences on Beach Street, they would make the same maneuvering that they have been making historically. And we feel there's some value in that.
So with a 30-foot setback, you could pull a truck and a boat and not be encroaching on the street? Is that, if you had your gate there, and you turned in with a truck and a boat?
We believe so.
Would you clear the street?
Yes.
Where would it be, if you had a 30-foot, where would the gate be?
The gate is on right about here on this angle.
At the boat side.
And I think it's interesting to talk about the boat. We've heard a lot of different, and I think it's part of the planning is you tackle what-if scenarios, right? What if there's a truck and a boat? What if there's 2 trucks and a boat? What if there's 3 trucks and a boat? What happens now on Highway 28, and this is maybe a lesson learned to me, is we try to solve what's an existing everyday occurrence during every day of the summer, which is along Highway 28 from essentially Beach Street all the way to Agatam, which is across, through that whole open area. People park on the side of the road, in the right-of-way, on the shoulder with boats and trailers, almost butted together. And they do backing maneuvers to park those boats on the side of the road And this is one project. I'm usually coming for parking variances with not enough spots. This is one project where we actually had some space, and we thought maybe we could solve a problem here and provide some trailer parking. It has since then dominated the discussion of our project, is trailer parking now. When we feel like we're taking a very consistent issue with parallel parking of vehicles and trailers along Highway 28, and now taking them on our site is far better. But there's still concerns with that safety. But we feel it's a vastly improved situation.
I guess where I'm puzzling is the variance is asking for a 10-foot variance, but where does the 30-foot fit into this?
I believe the variance is from property line. So property line is here, that line, and our setback is 30 feet from traveled way.
So that's a two-lane road at that point, I guess, is what you're saying?
There's 2 lanes in the westbound direction. That's traveled way. We're proposing the gate at 30 feet setback from that, which is acceptable to Caltrans and North Tahoe Fire.
Okay.
But the variance would be an ask of setback from property line. Is that correct?
That's
Yeah, I
correct.
guess I'm having trouble seeing 30 feet on the map, but
Well, the bike lane's 4 feet, and then we have a bit of a roadway shoulder, curb and gutter's another 3 feet, and then that driveway apron I think is 12 feet, and so it all stacks, adds up, and then our gate is about 15 feet then at the 30-foot from travel lane, 15 feet from property line I think is about.
where's the property line on that map?
Here's a corner there, and a corner there, and it's just back a walk at the driveway, back a sidewalk.
Okay, and so then I see a line there, and that's 10 feet in? Where's
This
the
line,
arrow?
this dash line there, I believe is 10 feet, yes.
10 feet? And so, I don't know, to me, it looks like you may have 20 feet. I'm still struggling where you get to 30 feet.
Our 30 feet that we're dimensioning is per North Tahoe Fire and Caltrans, and that's from this travel way line. Which is, you have travel way, then bike lane, and then curb and gutter, and then driveway apron, and then sidewalk, and then property line, and then the setback.
So that map is not really to scale?
This map here,
Yeah.
this map is to scale.
Okay, I guess I got to think about that, because I'm seeing 2 lanes going west, and then the edge of the pavement, and then when you look at the property line, which is 10 feet from where the bottom of the arrow, basically, it doesn't look like there's a 30-foot
No, I think this is a
place in there to me, but
4 lane.
maybe that's just me.
We can achieve a 30-foot
Huh?
setback from that traveled way line. We can achieve, it's possible, we can achieve that.
Would that be where the gutter is?
No, the travel way separates the bike lane from the vehicular lane.
So you're across. You're sitting on top of the bike lane. You're 30 feet.
Correct.
I'm looking at the letter dated October 2nd from Ms. Harrington at Placer County. And she seems to be discussing this concern about your the length of your travel way there and the variance for the gate, and saying that the gate should be placed so that tow vehicles and trailers will be completely out of the SR 28 travel way while accessing the proposed development. So have you had discussion subsequent to this letter?
With county staff?
Yes.
Certainly, yes.
To address this specifically?
We have.
If I can clarify, are you talking about the letter to Shirley from the Department of Transportation, i.e. Caltrans?
Right, exactly, right.
Thank you.
The Caltrans letter, sorry. Yes. So I want to know the status of those concerns for, to Shirley Harrington from the Caltrans folks.
So our position on that is that we are required to achieve a Caltrans encroachment permit.
Right.
We have had subsequent discussions and review since that later. I think it was dated October 2nd.
Correct.
We were just in contact with Caltrans yesterday, and we have made a complete resubmittal to them, and we believe to have fully complied with all their concerns. So I don't have their encroachment permit yet.
Right.
It will be a requirement, but based on our conversations with them, we believe we are there.
Okay, so you
Okay.
expect to get a permit from them?
Well, and it's a condition of our approval anyway.
Right.
And we feel they are the right authority for that approval. It's their right-of-way. They're responsible for the vehicular movements there.
Okay, yeah, at this point, we can probably discuss this further, but I'd like you to go ahead with your presentation and give the public a chance to talk. And
Certainly.
then we can come back, we'll give you a chance to come back and
Okay.
address this in more detail.
So moving on, this is an elevation of the proposed three building multi-units. There'll be two of those. Alan mentioned it's 7 units. Unit 1 is the existing manager's unit that will remain, and then we'll build 2 3-building structures, and that's the front elevation of what those structures would look like. As part of that review, we've been informally once to North Tahoe Design Review Committee and received some feedback and implemented some of those changes that they requested. Once we achieve our use permit or planning commission approval, we'll go back to North Tahoe Design Review for a recommendation from them. That's how the units break down in terms of size. Unit 1 is the existing that will remain, and then units 2 through 7 are more or less identical. I say more or less identical because there is some slight variations in the footprints. And then that's our equivalent parking spaces required based on square footage and rooms. So 18 spaces, we will be providing 18 spaces on site. We do have some goals with this project. One of those goals is to develop or to demonstrate that infill projects in Kings Beach Town Center, specifically parcel redevelopment, and what I mean by that is a small project. Small projects bear a higher cost to permit than larger projects. There's not enough total project cost to eat a lot of the permitting costs or compliance costs that happen. And this project has contributed to the public good already. Alan mentioned that we are intending to build sidewalks along State Route 28 as part of the community plan improvements. We are. In 2010, they did major water system upgrades, which included new water main line down Beach Street and 2 new fire hydrants. That cost the applicant about $125,000 out of pocket for construction costs, and then there was additional permitting and plan generation on top of that.
And that was in 2010?
2010, correct.
Okay.
So those are in the ground already. Community plan improvements, the building of sidewalks, would happen as part of this next step.
Okay.
We're hoping to reduce coverage by 8.7%. We are pretty fine there with the decimal. That's probably going to go down and be closer to 5 to make fire happy. Fire's asked for a little bit more width to have emergency vehicle access, so that's going to impact the amount of coverage we're able to remove, but we're still going to have a net coverage reduction. I think it's going to be more like 5%. We've reduced density from 17 TAUs to 7 residential units, which we feel is compatible with the residential area there. We're also building in a town center. That is one of the main goals of the new regional plan and the Tahoe Basin Area Plan, is to focus redevelopment investment in town centers where people are adjacent to shopping, adjacent to recreation, or adjacent to nightlife and restaurants. And we have all those close by, including bus stops. We're also hoping to improve the scenic quality. The site is, since 1956, it is time-worn. It needs some investment. Its existing model is not one that can support investment as it is currently configured. It needs to be changed, and that's why we're proposing a 7-unit condominium redevelopment. We will be the second project to follow, at least a complete new build, to follow the Kings Beach Commercial Core Improvement Project, which is private dollars following that public investment of downtown infrastructure. And then we'll do parking and access. We will improve the site for water quality, which means install BMPs, which are not there now, and adequate drainage. These are renderings that are required as part of our scenic compliance. State Route 28, there is a scenic roadway unit, so we do have to show what our project will look like in the future. So this is a rendering if you were standing across 28 on the south side looking north of what the wall with the wrought iron fence might look like. and landscaping it. And that landscaping is assuming about a 5-year to 10-year growth. Our intent is to plant larger trees, but it may not look just as full as that initially, but I think that's pretty safe to say within 5 years. You can see the mature cottonwood on the right at the corner of Beach Street. It's much larger than the landscaping we're showing, but we still feel like we blend in very well with the surrounding of building size and massing. That's another view looking more northeast. And then, of course, we'll be complying with all the applicable codes from California building codes to Tahoe Basin Area Plan. And then there's going to be the few variances that we're asking for, which I think is actually applying black and white codes in a gray world with existing urban infill redevelopment. We're not a raw land subdivision with excess space that has a blank slate, so to speak. We have to work with some existing design constraints. And I think that concludes. I have additional pictures that I think may make sense when we start to discuss items that I go to. And I think I'd conclude now and open it up to questions.
Okay. You see any further questions this time, or we can go to the public? You want? You have some?
I can wait, yeah.
You can wait? Okay, I think we'll wait and give the public a chance to comment. And I see somebody up there in Tahoe that looks like they're ready to go. We can't hear you yet, but maybe we will in a minute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Craig Werner. It's my wife, Kelly. We live and have lived for 6 years on Beach Street. Our driveway is directly opposite the open foundations that have existed, I know, so obviously prior to when we moved in. First of all, we both want to lend our support and our enthusiastic support for this overall project. I think, I'll say this again later on, any improvement would be more than welcome. I do have a couple of concerns, and unfortunately we're here in Tahoe City, we are at a little bit of disadvantage not being able to see what's on the screen there. So I'll kind of go, my comments will be based on some things that I heard. First of all, we're concerned about the current condition of the property and the open pit of the foundation with rebar sticking up. So that concern really needs to be addressed if this project isn't approved. But the other things, based on what I've heard with respect to the project, I'm not quite sure where the wall is intended to be placed. Is it just on the opposite side of Unit 1, west on 28? Maybe someone could clarify that. Because we, on a daily basis, drive out at the intersection of Highway 28 and Beach Street, and anything that would obstruct that visibility. Visibility is tough as it is with the trees and the curves within 28. So anything that further impairs that visibility would be a disadvantage to us and also create a safety challenge. So I'd like that consideration. Secondly, I know there's been some discussion about where ingress and egress from the property will be, and I would certainly support, even though it might pose some additional traffic issues on Beach Street, I would like consider the ingress on Beach Street and egress out onto 28. My concern being that the way Highway 28 turns, as you go out of Beach Street, the visibility to the left or east is only available after you pass the public utilities building. And we have noticed, even though it's a 35-mile-an-hour speed zone there, especially in the summertime, you have people exceeding 50 miles an hour going west on 28. And if you've got somebody with a boat, somebody in 2 cars waiting for the gate to open, and they're on 28, you're going to have a large safety problem. So I'd like to take that safety problem and put it onto 28, where it's a lot more quiet. I'm sorry, take that ingress onto Beach Street, because you're going to be creating a huge safety issue on 28. We've had accidents there before, and I just don't want to contribute to that problem. So again, we want to reiterate that we'd like to see the ingress coming onto Beach Street and egress out onto Highway 28. The wall, just considering what sort of visibility problems that might create, but overall, we enthusiastically support this project as residents of Beach Street. And I appreciate this opportunity to address the panel. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Appreciate your comments. Let me see, anybody else? Is there anybody else from the public or anywhere that has a comment? Not seeing anybody smile or raise a finger. We'll go back to the applicant, and I think there's some questions from the commission that you're sure welcome to ask right now if you'd like.
Well, I hadn't thought about before this of changing the circulation, but I did think about moving the gate back a little further to get a little more freedom and not block the bike trail and so forth. And it didn't seem like that was a big deal. But I am tempted at the idea that speaker came up with of reversing the cycle of traffic through it. Certainly has some merit, because Beach Street is not a busy street. There's only a handful of houses, and then it serves the corporation yard for the golf course, and so there's just not much traffic on it. Seems like it makes some sense, and I'd like to hear your comment on.
Certainly. EJ, could I have someone pull up the... Did I lose the...
EJ took it. EJ took it.
Oh, okay.
It's his fault, EJ.
Now you throw me off my game.
Distract you.
So first, I'd just like to say that there are merits to the alternate circulation. There's merits to both. There's pros and cons. And that's, I think, the easiest way to just tackle it straight on. There's trade-offs to both ways. By entering the way we're proposing, everybody leaves Beach Street the same manner. So all the residents on Beach Street leave the same manner. You have one egress point that becomes the spot where vehicles enter the highway instead of two. So with those higher speeds, we feel like there's some safety considerations that are gained from only having one spot being Beach Street that everybody enters the highway from. But you can make the arguments the other way. I understand, and I do think there's some valid points for the alternate circulation. Why we've proposed this one is mostly because it's the existing circulation pattern, and the owners that have been there have ways that they like to approach the site, and they feel this is the best for them and is the safest as well from them being there. So we have looked at it both ways. We got a comment early on from engineering to have a look at the alternate egress point, and we did look at it. It does make some challenges for us on how we turn on to Beach Street from Beach Street into our property in terms of radiuses. Beach Street is quite narrow, so it does make some turning movements there difficult. It also makes this parking arrangement that we have here skew the other way and pushes things out into this area, so we have to have a little more coverage. I can't equivocally say one way is safer than the other. When I look at it, I see pros and cons in both manner. So when you get to that point, then we start to take the owner's interest and the investor's interest on how they would like the site to function.
Okay. Would you have, because obviously you would have to change the angle of the parking if it was coming in that way. I mean, is that something you could do, or would that drastically change the plan? Because obviously as you come down to where the pool is, you're going to have, it's going to have an impact, because you can't turn those towards the pool without moving them up quite a bit from
Correct. Yep. It changes some of the ability to have landscaped areas and stormwater quality basins between the building here and buildings, or this landscape area and C that we're using. It changes this back parking area and puts the potential of parking in a setback, which would require a variance on this side. Right now, we're just out of that 10-foot setback.
My friend Jeff made a comment, and I thought it was a pretty good one. One of the things you could gain is the gate on the 28 could be closer to the street, so you'd pick up some parking and some yard area there for the ones you mentioned you were going to lose by reversing the angles for the parking. I think that would be some help. You wouldn't have to have as much.
We don't gain any parking here because the pool is existing and it's fixed, so we wouldn't have the ability to locate any additional parking there with the gate moving. We looked at that.
I don't know if you have any more parking, but it just gives you more space.
One of the things, too, is that we've shown, let's see our renderings. That's the rendering of the gate as it will be now. So we feel that's an architectural steel piece, that it's pleasant looking, that it looks good. If we were to reverse the traffic flow, this would be one-way exit, and it would result in signage like this.
Right.
And, that's a judgment call. What looks better? Me, personally, I think the wrought iron gate looks better than that signage fronting 28.
Can I ask you a question?
Is there not going to be those same signs facing the other way as people want to try to leave that way?
On Beach Street, yes. Beach Street is not a scenic roadway corridor, however.
I'd like to ask you a question about
Sure.
the reason for putting the wall in the front there and the wrought iron on top. Part of it was for security for the pool. Does the pool have a fence all the way around it now?
It does.
So if you didn't have the gate there, the pool will still be protected.
Correct.
Or at least isolated anyway is the right word, I guess.
So there's a code requirement for any pool that's deeper, I think, than 3 feet, or even a stormwater basin. It has to have a gate to restrict people from accessing it. This is the remainder of our gate around the pool area. That is all 6 foot as well.
Okay.
And then I didn't answer the public comment regarding where the stone and wrought iron fence goes. It is just along the SR28 frontage here, and we show it actually angling back at this location so that people can pull up to the stop bar and see down. So we will not be any further than the existing fence that's there, and we will also have to comply with the site distance exhibits there with where our fence is located. So I do think it's a valid concern, but I do think we're prepared to position that wall appropriately so that it doesn't impact being able to see pulling out from Beach Street.
Is the rest of the property fenced?
Yes, there's a 6-foot cedar slat fence that runs along this property line here and here. In this area, it'll also screen some utility connections, which is the hot box for the fire water system, so it does some screening. It breaks here, and then we have little gated sections just on the backyard stoops of this building. There's another break here of no fence, and then no fence proposed along that building.
Okay. Any further questions?
Excuse me. I'd just like you to discuss the issue on the vehicle gate that the staff is recommending denial of variance for that, and what your rationale for that is in light of all the commentary in the staff report.
Certainly, I think our request is that we would ask for the life safety concern portion of that evaluation to be performed by Caltrans ultimately and North Tahoe Fire with some input from Placer County staff. So that's kind of one piece in my head, is the life safety and vehicle movements that happen. The other piece is discussion, I think, of character and whether or not it's applicable in the town center. We've done some research. We do have the newly minted area plan, and this is one volume of the 2-volume document. In this document, gate is not mentioned other than gate valve or outlet gates for Tahoe City Dam or mitigate or delegate. There's not anything in this new document that expressly prohibits a gate in a town center. There's also the assertion that we're creating a gated community. That I don't think that is entirely applicable, because we're only gating this point right here. We're not gating this location, and we're not gating where this sidewalk meets Beach Street. So I don't think we meet the definition of a gated community. The reason for the gate is twofold from the applicant's perspective or the owner's perspective. One is that this project site has become a turnaround, so people are entering the site to drive through just to turn around to go the other way when traffic is built up to 267. So they drive through the site purely for the means of just turning around, and that happens frequently on weekends and frequently during the busiest months of summer. And the other is to also establish some sense of security. There have been some recent thefts at the property of things in the yard or in the area, so that's the other piece. Those are the two requests.
But wouldn't the existence of the gate, and I know it's only 7 units, but to the extent people are driving in with their boats and trailers and you've got a gate there, doesn't that create both traffic and pedestrian issues that wouldn't be there but for the gate?
Well, you know, the simple answer is, does it have the potential to create those? Yes. Are we exacerbating or creating a new situation that doesn't happen regularly on 28? No, we're not inventing something new. We actually feel like we're providing a better situation than what the existing condition is. The existing condition is that there are boats and trailers and people parking on the roadway shoulder of Highway 28 the entire summer. And we're just talking about bringing the residents' boats and trailers some of the time, not every day, but we're just providing that spot for them. But it has dominated the discussion of our site.
Well, I understand that part, but I mean, the gate itself, though, would require someone to stop and open the gate, whether you have a security person there or not, correct?
Correct, yep.
So that would have potential to slow traffic down and create pedestrian problems, potentially. I'd also like you to just briefly address, I'm sure you've seen this letter from the Shaws regarding pedestrians crossing in that area. What consideration, if any, have you given to that issue?
Well, I think there's two parts of that question, right? There's the pedestrians that are already in the area that are not part of this development.
Correct.
For them, we are building a community plan improvement, which is the sidewalk that fronts Highway 28 here. Presently, it's just dirt, and they walk there now. We are installing it with the truncated domes where it meets Beach Street, so that it notifies someone that is impaired visually to know about it. But we're not proposing a crosswalk across the street. Being that this is town center, this is now an extension of what was the Kings Beach Commercial Core. That is all now town center, and this is town center. Our hope is that a similar road diet, if you will, or Main Street improvement project like Kings Beach Commercial Core Improvement Project continues through town center and does additional landscape, maybe landscape islands or crosswalks. But as of right now, we're not proposing any type of crosswalk across 28. And I would add, too, is that the use type or the land use of us going from tourist accommodation, which is motel, at 16 units down to 7 is a lot less demand in terms of individuals that could be generated to cross that area. So while we would support additional pedestrian improvements, we're not addressing Caltrans right away for pedestrian improvements.
Quickly, and I know it was been presented, how many parking spaces are you allowing for in development as a whole? 18.
18.
Okay. And just also the square footage of the units?
So I believe the units are just shy of 1,700 square feet for the 3-bedroom units.
Okay. All righty. Thank you.
Maybe if staff can respond to some of the comments, if I could.
Well, yeah, let me, are we through asking questions here? Thank you very much.
I do have another letter of support that I would like to turn in.
Okay.
That was given to me this morning.
Okay, so, well, the public comment period is closed. And so now we're open to questions from the commission, or if staff would like to further address the issue, you're welcome to do it at this point.
Thank you. I'd like to clarify a few things, and I'll have Sarah jump in with the engineering components as we move along here. But, staff did initially, as Andrew indicated, looked at the project, and we suggested, the access coming into Beach Street. So the applicant came back and with this particular project, and again, the verbiage in the area plan, it's not a shall. It's something we would work with the applicant to review and take a look at. Now, we did receive comments from Caltrans during the initial environmental review. There's a specific condition on condition 29, which I think one of the commissioners raised, about the visibility as well as the public as well. They are required to review the final plan and then give it to staff to say, yes, we approve this particular layout as for landscaping to make sure it's trimmed back and line of sight. So there is a condition of approval to ensure that that's going to take place. Caltrans okay with it. This is also in the case with TRPA as well, because it is a TRPA project. Staff's been talking to them where they are in their project as well. Going to the gate itself, we could not make findings for the variance. There's a 20-foot setback that's there. So anything higher than 3 feet requires a variance. So special circumstances we could not find. Size, shape, topography, something to allow this particular fence. So that's one area, just to clarify, that we're in disagreement with the applicant. The other one is the new area plan. We don't have anything in the area plan to start these gated communities. I do want to state to the commission, if it is so decided that this is something we are going to have in the future, when we talk to our applicants in the future on discretionary permits, this is a direction you are giving to staff as well, that this is something we'll be seeing in our area plan. So I want to allow you guys to deliberate on that as well. I guess, is there anything else that, Sarah, you want to address on engineering?
I would just say that above and beyond the community plan, basin area plan, and the other general plan requirements, from an engineering standpoint, and you can see this if you read the mitigated negative declaration, the gate goes beyond that, and that we at Placer County believe that you should be able to turn around and enter the public road in a forward-facing direction. That's in our general plan, as well as the Tahoe Basin Area Plan and parking facility design standards. And the point is that you don't want people backing out into a public right-of-way. So from an engineering standpoint, we did actually add a mitigation measure that even if the gate's approved, we want to turn around in front of it. And this is a little bit of a judgment call, but we do believe that there's not room to provide a turnaround. There could be. I'm not the designer, but it appears that would be a very difficult thing to encumber the project. So that's just something else to consider if we do allow a gate. That is a mitigation measure that would still apply. As far as there's been a number of comments about driver sight distance, which is something we take very seriously. Both Caltrans, as a part of the required encroachment permit, will definitely review the sight distance, especially at Beach Street, that they've mentioned. It's clear that some vegetation clearing can easily improve the situation, as well as the community plan sidewalk is going to provide a really good safe harbor for pedestrians that doesn't exist today. Some of that sight distance may extend beyond the right-of-way into the county purview when we review the improvement plans, and we will also take a look at that intersection driver sight distance. And I'm happy to entertain any other questions.
It's still not clear. From the property line, there's a request for a 10-foot variance for the gate. Is that correct?
Is it 10 feet? See, there's two different things that we're talking about. When Mr. Ryan was talking about it, there's something that Caltrans is looking at, which is distance from traveled way, usually the fog line, right? And their point is getting vehicles out of the traveled way so they don't back up.
Yeah, but is it 10 feet? Is that correct?
But yeah, so what we're talking about is the 10 feet from the property line.
Okay. And so it takes 30 feet to satisfy...
It depends on who you're talking to.
Okay.
But that's
and
what
so that
I hear from Caltrans, is that they would be satisfied with 30 feet. I would point to the county requirement is 40 feet from traveled way. So it would be in excess of what's being shown now as well. We provide 40 feet because basically that's like 2 parking spots. A parking spot is 20 feet deep. That would allow for 2 cars to queue up while somebody's pushing in the number at the call button. Or, as been mentioned, a car and a boat.
So to meet the county standard, they'd have to have either 30 feet, or according to what they're hearing from Caltrans, they'd have to have an additional 20 feet. And when I look at the map, I don't see that distance on the map personally.
The map I have does show 30 feet back from the traveled way, from the fog line.
Okay.
So I can verify that does exist on the latest map that I have.
But for the county requirement, you want another 10.
More than 10. It would be 10 to the call box where you enter your code.
And you
the
need
gate
a
would have to be
turnaround
beyond
there.
that.
You need
And then a
turnaround.
turnaround, right? And as we've discussed with the applicant, we do entertain design exception requests for variances from our plates and design standards. But that's something we do during construction documents, during improvement plan review, because you really get into the nuances of what your construction limitations are.
Okay.
I'd just like to add on to what both Sarah and Alan have mentioned is I think it's important to note that the application request is a request for variance from county setbacks. So don't confuse the Caltrans requirements for improvements with what's before you as the request and what staff has recommended denial of. And that's a variance from the setback, which is measured from the property line. The second thing I'd point out is the findings that are required are findings that are set forth in state law. They're very specific. If the commission is considering an approval of this, the commission is going to have to make findings as to what the special circumstances are. The one thing I'd point out is that under the state law and under the case law, special circumstances are construed very strictly. What is unique? And I'd submit that the discussion that's been had that there is an alternate ingress where a gate could be supported by staff where you don't have the same constraints as the front does go against the finding of a special circumstance. So just to put that in the minds of the commission that when you get to the point of acting on that request, you have findings for recommendation of denial. If you choose to go the opposite way, you will have to articulate those findings based on the evidence in the record and before you. The one other thing I'd point out is in the mitigated neg deck, it does point out that if there was a gate there where it was proposed off of Highway 28, there is the potential of issues with that gate. I don't know if that rises to the level of having to go back and look at the environmental impacts of that. I'm not prepared to address that, but as we get further along with your actions, we can address that at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, a comment on that. If you pull into that gate and you thought you had the combination to have to somehow open the gate, but it was wrong and you couldn't, and then you'd have to back out into the highway to go on down the road or wherever you were going to go because you couldn't get in. That doesn't seem like a very sanitary situation because that's a pretty heavily trafficked area. People coming out of Safeway and off the stoplight there. And if any number of people got the wrong combination or for whatever reason had to back out into that traffic, that's not a good deal. I don't think. I don't know if, am I making myself clear? Mm-hmm. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm just thinking out loud here. I'm not trying to.
Okay, I'd like to maybe change the subject a little bit unless somebody's got more information on the gate. We talked about a crosswalk, and I'm looking in here, and it may be in black and white, but typically in these use permits, there is a fee for future improvements that are kind of commensurate with the level of use. It seems like to get a crosswalk for this person or these owners to put a crosswalk and go through the process to get that approved may be a little bit excessive, but it did come up in the public comment. So at any rate, is there some kind of a fee that's being charged for
mitigation,
whatever, for at least proportionate share for future whatever on Highway 28?
We look at the new area plan that was recently adopted, to make sure about circulation and, community plan improvements being one of them, and we have conditioned that for the applicant to do. We didn't see anything to require a new sidewalk, or a new crosswalk, that is, near this area for this particular project to do an in lieu fee. But we do look at the new area plan. That's our guiding document that if there's something we want to have, we will take a look at. In the future, you will see another project, on a boardwalk in Kings Beach where we will be doing something like that. But this particular project, there's not.
It's not big enough really to proportion out some share. I mean, that's what I'm really wondering about it. At some point in time, the crosswalk probably will go in someplace around there. But at any rate, somebody's got to pay for it then.
Maybe a comment here would help. Most of the land surrounding on the west and the north side of this project is owned by the Tahoe Conservancy, so it'll never be developed. So the need for another crosswalk in this location is kind of marginal for that reason. There is a crosswalk just up the street at Safeway.
Oh, it exists, yeah.
And it exists today that could be used, but it's a little not as convenient, but it is available.
So the people here and the people in the neighborhood have an option then? Okay.
Alan, I know you don't have the controls, they're sitting up there, but would you mind putting back up the recommendations, please?
Okay, I hear the drum beats drumming. Is that the end of the comments and questions from the commission? Okay, seeing a bunch of blank stares.
I'd like to make a comment. Okay. First of all, I want to compliment the owners and the developer. Sounds like they really need to improve this property. As mentioned, people at Tahoe, anything would be an improvement. But I think the staff has done a terrific job, but I don't think the point or the case has been made strong enough for the gate. For some of the reasons have been discussed, the one that just was brought up about backing up and what have you, and I also think that make a comment on coming in off of Beach Street. Then you would have two exits or two people coming out on Beach and at this location, too close to another. So I like the idea of going in rather than coming out onto Highway 28. So, but I think the gate, it was mentioned that there's been some theft and what have you, but I don't think this case has been made strong enough, and that's just my opinion. I think staff's done a good job in outlining, and attorney too, as far as that goes, as outlining the reasons for the denial of that lap portion number 5.
And I think I tend to agree with you. If the gate was an exit gate, the traffic was reversed, I don't think I'd have a problem with it, because the potential for stuff backing up onto the main highway wouldn't exist. And it would accomplish the need that the owners want for the gate. Right. But if it's an entrance gate, I think it needs to be set considerably further off the highway to accommodate
turnaround.
A turnaround for those who tried to get in the wrong driveway and were denied, and also just to stack a boat and a trailer. I mean, they're getting bigger these days, and you don't see a 20-foot boat out in Tahoe too often, and you don't see it being pulled by a 20-foot truck too often. They're both larger than that, and with that, I have a hard time finding support for the gate, and I usually am very easy to support gates.
I thought you were going to. And here, I thought you were going to argue with me.
It scares me when I agree with you.
Yeah, it kind of scares me too.
But I that's the hard part. I think it's a good project. The rest of it, I don't think I have. I think the issue is the gate.
Okay. Well, unless there's further comment, I would entertain a motion.
So Chairman, real quick, the applicant has brought to our attention, I know public comment period has been closed, that they have an issue with a condition regarding Beach Street improvement, so it's up to the commission whether or not they want to entertain a discussion on that.
I don't know if I picked up on totally what you said.
How we close that?
So the applicant has brought it to our attention that there are improvements along Beach Street, and there's a condition that's is related to that. Is it 27? And so I'm not sure exactly what the issue is with that condition, but it's whether or not the commission wants to entertain having that conversation with the applicant right now before you take any action.
Yeah, would the applicant like to further address that? Okay, you're welcome. We'll open up that comment period for you to address that.
I appreciate that. EJ, would you pull back up my exhibits? One item that wasn't discussed was community plan improvements along Beach Street, which is the construction of a sidewalk that is 5 foot wide with curb and gutter. Beach Street is not a 40-foot right-of-way, it's a 30-foot right-of-way, and we have existing improvements, which is our building one, the manager's residence, and then the foundation, that we feel it doesn't fit, and that it's also not with the character of this area. And we have prepared some cross-sections to help illustrate that point. This is the existing roadway section. And what we've shown here is the foundation for Building B, which is the existing foundation that's there. And then where present edge of pavement is, this is property line. So present edge of pavement that people are parking on is on private property. 30-foot right-of-way. And right now it's about 11 feet plus about 8.5, so 19.5 feet of width on Beach Street to where the edge of pavement is, and then utility poles. This is what our proposed frontage improvements are, what we've submitted presently to this point, which shows the same foundation, structure, small patio area, fence and enclosure behind those units, removal of 2 foot of shoulder of asphalt at property line to create a shoulder, and then about a 19-foot travel way on Beach Street.
No sidewalk.
No sidewalk. And then this is what would be required by the Tahoe Basin Area Plan within a 40-foot right-of-way, but then again, Beach Street is a 30-foot right-of-way, not a 40-foot right-of-way. And this is what would happen with edge of sidewalk at property line, 5 feet of sidewalk, 3 feet for curb and gutter. It leaves a very diminished travel way unless this edge of pavement was expanded. However, there are frontage utilities on that side, and it would also greatly impact those property owners on that side of the street as well. I do have an exhibit from the Tahoe Basin Plan which shows proposed pedestrian and shared use path improvements. It shows the sidewalks through all of the town center, and then it shows a continuation of those. Here's our project site in Beach Street. We are planning to build the portion of these improvements on 28. However, we've noted that it does not show those sidewalks on Beach Street, and we think that's purposeful, as it does not show them in these other less dense residential areas within Kings Beach as well. Staff's position is that the sidewalk is required there. We would like to see that condition removed because it doesn't appear to fit, and it doesn't appear that there's the amount of residents that would warrant a sidewalk in that location as well, and is not shown on this exhibit within the area plan.
Could you go back to your slide that showed what you're proposing? And
certainly.
Is that one there? Okay. So there's going to be, what, a 4-foot sidewalk there? Is that, or just a path?
That's just a landing at the steps, so no path along that portion of the Beach Street. That is just a landing there.
So where's the property line?
Right there, up and down, I guess.
This is here.
How about on the other side? That's the property line.
Correct.
And so is this a variance? Because I thought I saw there's a 5-foot setback.
This is not a variance. I think we'd be asking for this condition to be removed, or for a design exception, secondarily a design exception later on, because we truly believe it does not fit on Beach Street.
Yeah, well, what I'm seeing is a 4-foot from the prop to a fence, I guess, is what that is.
No, that's
patio?
This is the Building B wall, a patio or stoop, then a fence, and this is just a concrete landing. I can show you in plan view, but it's not contiguous in and out of the page. It's just a landing at a stair.
So
the building.
Where's the 5-foot setback?
To the fence, or I'm sorry, I'm not.
Well, I think on the
question.
plan I saw there's a 5-foot setback.
It shows
on-
4 feet there
And here you're showing 4 feet.
to the fence.
So what we're seeing in that section is this is the building line, steps, and then the landing and a fence here. And that fence just runs along these units to create a little fenced backyard.
So the setback would be to the building and not include the patios?
The setback on this property line is established as part of our use permit, and I believe it's in the staff report.
The road's just not set right.
Why can't the bike trail go on the other side of the street and you don't have to deal with it?
The sidewalk?
Yeah.
So if you were to place the sidewalk on the other side, it wouldn't be our frontage improvement. It would be those parcels' frontage improvement, and therefore their responsibility. Also, if I'll go to our section. So that's the existing condition. There is utility poles, so there's overhead power there. So what we show with the sidewalk is that you'd have to extend, and then these would have to be removed on that side.
Why couldn't you just go from edge of asphalt to the power pole? Isn't that about the same size as a bike trail?
Well, it's a sidewalk, and the requirement is 5 feet, plus curb and gutter, which is an additional 3 feet.
Gee, there's no room for that.
If staff could address the condition.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
So,
Well, I guess are you?
I'm sorry.
We'll let you further. Are you want to have some more comment or?
That would be that on this issue. One thing I'd like to add on the gate issue is that we could also propose that the gate always be opening. That's one compromise that we thought of, is that it not actually require a keypad, so that any vehicle that pulls in, the gate would then open as a potential solution to the queuing problem. But that would allow us to keep our access the way it is.
But that kind of wrecks your security part.
Well, it at least provides a visual and will hopefully cut down on people that are using it to loop through.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Engineering.
Thank you. So I'd point you to condition 27, which I believe the applicant is suggesting he would request you strike the 5-foot concrete sidewalk. If you recall, at the beginning I read into the record that we would like to add in, per our discussions, that a design exception request could be processed to handle this during improvement plans. Yeah. So that's the way staff would propose you handle it. What we are looking at is definitely the most important thing is a 22-foot roadway. And could I get the clicker? Yeah. Or could you click back one?
Yeah.
So you'll see here what the applicant is proposing in his cross section here is it says 19.25, but an awful lot of the section that goes in and out to go around the numerous utility poles that are on the other side. It averages about that 22 feet. It meets the requirement per se. Staff supports what they're showing, and then it ends right at the property line, right here. What we observed is that we have a brand new area plan, and it's our obligation to implement it as staff, and that is the black and white implementation he's referring to. And so I could point to a number of sections that do mention in the area plan that a 5-foot wide concrete or 6-foot wide concrete sidewalk to be determined by land use be required. Now he is correct that it's not shown in the color map, but we interpret staff that is a requirement. We do see that this is an existing constraint, and we would definitely entertain a design exception request. We believe it would be a reasonable design exception request. We could talk about different surfaces than concrete, such as DG, or something, and a lesser standard as long as it means ADA, or even just a shoulder to provide pedestrian harbor when there's traffic on that road. But we believe that just what the applicant is proposing, which is just the pavement, the 22 feet, doesn't meet the requirement of a residential subdivision. So that's why we proposed the condition as we did.
It appears from what he was presenting that to do what you want would take up some of the roadway. They would have to cut and go into the pavement of the roadway.
And I can see where that confusion comes in.
And then it would narrow the actual road.
We would hold the roadway first, and due to the extremely limited right-of-way, as you know, the county minimum right-of-way is 40 feet usually.
Yeah.
We're really restricted by existing constraints here. We would ask that the sidewalk be on-site instead of in the right-of-way. That's what we were implying is more of what kind of looks like here, this landing, if this landing instead was a 4-foot DG path or other surface.
I think they make a legitimate argument that the Beach Street, putting in a sidewalk is a bit excessive for the community there. And so I guess my question is, are you going to be very insistent on some kind of a sidewalk? You did mention about a DG path. Because I would tend to agree with them. I mean, just me personally, that sidewalk just doesn't seem like it fits for the area. I don't know if we're going to give the people from the community a comment period on this, but I'd be interested on how they feel about that. But to me, it just seems like a dirt path that they basically have now. It's probably sufficient for that type of area.
I would agree that there's some gray areas here, and it would be it would be something the Planning Commission can make a decision on.
Okay, well, I keep closing and opening the public session, but I see we do have somebody that's anxious to comment up in Tahoe. So go ahead, sir.
Nobody's ever accused me of not being animated. Some comments I've just heard. Again, I live across the street from the existing foundations on Beach Street, and I heard some conversation about the setback and the fence and the sidewalk. What I'd like to mention is, in the summer months, the Beach Street is often invaded by people non-residents parking their vehicles along Beach Street on both sides of the street. And if you had a 4-foot sidewalk on the opposite side from where I live, you would be encouraging people to park along that curb, along with people parking along my side of the street, making the street virtually impassable, especially to public safety vehicles, fire trucks, etc. And if this is something that you are going to actively consider and propose, I would strongly urge you to include no parking signs along Beach Street, because again, our experience especially around 4th of July and throughout the summer months, people use Beach Street as a parking lot for large pickup trucks and boat trailers, empty boat trailers that they've already launched. So Beach Street becomes a real challenge to navigate, and if a sidewalk takes people away from parking on just the shoulder on the applicant's side of the street, and it'll just make it even worse.
Sorry. It's a dead-end street that dead ends to the maintenance facility for the golf course. So it's a very small area. We really don't have a lot of traffic. It never feels unsafe as a pedestrian without the sidewalks. I don't really, unless it's a requirement, I don't really see a need for sidewalks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay, I see the applicant would like to talk to us again. Okay.
Hello, Bruce Carra. Generally, I defer to Andrew here. He's a little more eloquent than I. Couple things on the gate. There are many examples of gates along 267. Granted, this is a new project, so we're bringing it forward to you, and that's why it's here for discussion. I would like to grab the clicker. So as you're traveling from Highway 80 going to 267, and you actually hit the Highway 28 and the street light 228, there's actually a gate directly across at that intersection. As we all know, with recent improvements and the traffic that builds up on Highway 28 through the Kings Beach corridor, traffic is often backed all the way up and then proceeding to go up 267. So a couple examples of Martis Camp, as you know, in the Martis Valley area. They have a beach shack that opened up 3 or 4 years ago, have not one but 2 gates. Granted, I believe This was done a little different than bringing this towards the Planning Commission, but as an applicant and a investor in this project and a user, one of our big concerns is, if you would notice on where the pool is, there's also going to be a gazebo where, as you would have kids, as you would have children, dogs running around kind of in the property. Granted, we aren't considering this a gated community. I believe, as it was stated, there is no gate on Beach Street. Also in between the existing residence and the proposed triplex, there's no gate. So really, as we've made the concession to you already, if there is the issue of, sorry, I'm tired of bending over here, queuing up into 28 and the additional traffic that will build, we are happy to put a magnetic pressure gauge that when anyone pulls in there, maybe if they're confused or lost, if they didn't go in the right spot, the gate would still open. Really what we're trying to do is kind of discourage people who right now, through just habit and use, who maybe have gone down and launched their boat, know that an easy way is to go through Wood Vista Lodge, turn around, and then go back down Beach Street and pull around. So we're trying to discourage that. As this is a less intensive use, we're going from a motel use where had higher TAUs, we're reducing it down. We feel that we are not isolating this as a gated community, not really trying to discourage people and to actually distance ourselves from the community. We're just really doing this as a more of a life safety issue. And as we've been encouraged, or excuse me, Caltrans and the fire department have actually approved the gate or in the process of it. We're really just looking for this as the users there, just to try and limit, as I believe Mr. Warren said, the speeds that are on Highway 28 are sometimes excessive. So if we can just have a slight barrier between the Highway 28 and the users of the property. Granted, I understand some of the concerns with the gate, but for us, we are not trying to isolate the project. We're just trying to mitigate some safety concerns.
Okay, yeah, let me...
and then just one last thing on...
Well, let me give you some feedback on that. In order to come forward with your proposal, it seems like there may be some existing gates here, but we have to address the special circumstances in your proposal. And so in order to grant the gate, we're going to have to come up with some wording that talks about your special circumstances. You may have just provided some, but at any rate,
correct.
That's
and
what we would focus on.
And I apologize, I might be a little nervous, so if I was shouting or talking fast, again, I apologize there. But as for the gate, I believe we could maybe condition it that we work with staff to work on a design that would maybe mitigate any queuing onto Highway 28, and we can work to come up with a resolution and something with the gate that would allow the variance to go forward as we continue forward with our improvement plans. Furthermore, on the Beach Street side, as the applicant and the and involved on this, when you look at a project of this scale, again, we have a density, I believe, of 25 units per acre. We did not try and max that out, as the applicant will continue to live there, will be part of this community, and we are not looking for a home run. This isn't just a one and done deal for us. We are actually going to be living there, occupying it. So when we look at the project and you're trying to maximize the balance between any development, I believe is what pencils in a pro forma versus what some of the project, and I hesitate to use burdens on here, but as we are looking to see what will work for us and our cost, when we look at the global side of this project, for us to incur those additional improvements on Beach Street makes the project not feasible. I don't want to threaten with it. It's just a reality of this, as we've had to eventually we'll put in improvements along Highway 28, which will be quite a gap between our improvements going along, as Mr. Stevenson said, the Tahoe Conservancy land all the way down to Moon Dune Beach. There will not be improvements, sidewalks. And then if you go actually to the east, I believe. Yes, the east, in front of the Placer County Department of Public Works. There will be no sidewalk all the way in front of Lonza's until you get to Safeway. So we will be an isolated island of sidewalks for the foreseeable future, which we are agreeable with to build. But the burden of Beach Street is one that might not make this project feasible. And the ambiguity between having this condition and not being able to firmly know where we stand once you gentlemen make your ruling is something that the private sector does not do well with. The uncertainty of where that's going to land makes a project very difficult for us.
Okay, I think we've heard you on that issue, so appreciate it unless you have some other point.
I would respectfully ask that you remove that condition.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. And I'll close the public session again, and I'll turn it back to the commission. For whatever you
I just want to talk about 27 a little bit, since we're being asked to remove it. I sort of already posed this to you, is that I don't have a problem with leaving 27 in and adding that paragraph which says you'll negotiate with them to come up with a plan. But again, I don't know how to say this. I just don't think sidewalks should be a part of this. And if staff is going to continue to be adamant about sidewalks, then I'm more inclined to say take 27 out. So that's kind of where my position is.
If I could, speak to that, I think what we were talking about from staff, and just confirm with me, Alan and Sarah, that we would just be removing the one part where it says including a 5-foot concrete sidewalk in that condition, and keep the rest. Is that correct?
That is correct. The condition is more than just the sidewalk. It's the 22-foot road section required by the TBAP, and we've already agreed with the applicant that we're working within the constraints of the right-of-way. So the 19 to 22-foot frontage improvements of pavement would still be there. If the commission so chooses to remove the sidewalk portion, I'd suggest you just strike that portion of the first sentence.
Okay, so if we do strike that, the sidewalks are out, right?
Yes, correct.
Out.
Mm-hmm.
Won't come back and say, okay, I want a 3-foot, sidewalk.
No, it would be out of the
Not the
conditions.
sidewalks on the highway, but just
No,
sidewalk
I'm
on
just
the
talking
sidewalk.
about Beach Street, just Beach.
Just
Yeah.
Beach Street, condition 27.
Right, just Beach Street. So I guess I'd be comfortable if we can strike that out.
And-
Leave 27 in.
But I'm share Mr. Nader's view on that, and I'd be fine with the removal of the 5-foot sidewalk.
And adding that piece to negotiate it, something fair and reasonable.
Okay, is there any further comments or questions with staff and the commission?
Just quickly, you at the end of your presentation, you said you're uncomfortable with the uncertainty. Would you still have that uncertainty if the 5-foot sidewalk provision was removed?
Well, that certainly helps. There is some challenges with a complete 22-foot roadway section if that's old, hard, and fast. I know we can get to 19 and a half, but 22 feet causes some challenges, especially as you get closer to Beach Street there. I can commit clearly to making...
Probably ought to get to the microphone, and I have to open it up again for you to speak.
I apologize for that. So, yes, that helps removal of the sidewalk. The 22-foot requirement still provides some uncertainty because I'm not completely sure that can fit the entire length. We can commit to making the situation better, which means in no case will we reduce width.
Okay, so if we add the wording that's in the bottom of 28 to 27, does that mitigate what you're concerned about a little bit? Gives you a chance to do some hardball negotiation if you want to?
It helps. The only negotiating tool we have to some extent is if it goes beyond our ability to perform, then we have to walk away. What we would like to hear is that the existing roadway, that we won't make it any narrower, and we'll try to make it as wide as possible to meet that 22-foot requirement.
Okay. And so that's what you would be negotiating on later if we include that provision in 27?
Correct.
Okay.
Could I ask?
So from staff's point of view, that design exception would allow for that discussion.
Okay, so, because I was going to ask her, how adamant are you on the 22 feet? What if they were only able to physically do 19?
I believe that it can be wider than 19 from what I've scaled off the plans, but that's what the improvement plans are for, the actual
Well, you were okay with
constructability.
19, right?
19's great. It's a 22-foot width is what we're discussing.
Right.
This is why we look at it during improvement plans, where we get real construction level drawings. And I believe that the design exception request would absolutely support anything that's reasonable. We've already committed that we're not going to make you take out the numerous utility poles that are on the other side. You know, you might widen on the other side to get that 22 feet.
Okay, well, thank you. And I would make the comment, though, that it's kind of hard for us sitting here to do engineering.
Yeah.
And so, at any rate, as long as you have the ability to discuss this and have some flexibility, I mean, that's something that we can provide. But to do the actual engineering, you have to have engineers go out there and look at the situation and make a decision. So, and you can do that too. So, okay.
So I just want to make a comment. I'm in favor, like Mr. Nader, and in removing the 5-foot concrete section and making sure that second paragraph in 28 is included in 27, which is what we've been talking about.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to make a motion.
Well, I'm ready for you to.
Just a question for council. Do we want to do these one at a time?
Yes, please.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I motion that the Planning Commission adopt the mitigative negative declaration and errata has set forth in Attachment E and mitigation monitoring program prepared for the Wood Vista redevelopment project has set forth in Attachment F and supported by the findings in the report.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call?
I have a motion by Mr. Moss and a second by Mr. Nader. Mr. Arcuri?
Yes.
Mr. Haber?
Yes.
Mr. Rokucci?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Sevison?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I would further move that we approve the vesting tentative subdivision map, Attachment B, to allow to up to 7 single-family residential condominium units subject to the conditions of approval, Attachment D, and supported by the findings in the staff report, with a modification to Condition 27 to remove the requirement for the 5-foot concrete sidewalk, and with the addition of the design exception ability to, and that's at the bottom of paragraph 20, or condition 28 right now.
And that 5-foot sidewalk is along Beach Creek, Beach Street.
Correct, yes, the 5-foot sidewalk along Beach.
Second.
Okay, further discussion? Do the roll call?
I have a motion by Mr. Moss and a second by Mr. Nader. Mr. Arcuri?
Yes.
Mr. Haber?
Yes.
Mr. Rokucci?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Sevison?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I would further move that we approve the conditional use permit for the planned residential subdivision subject to the conditions of approval as modified, Attachment D, and supported by the findings in the staff report.
Second.
And that's also subject to the modification of condition
As modified,
27, correct?
Still second.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call?
I have a motion by Mr. Moss and a second by Mr. Nader. Mr. Arcuri?
Yes.
Mr. Haber?
Yes.
Mr. Rokucci?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Sevison?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, let me see, we have more, don't we?
We have more.
Yeah.
Make a motion that we approve the variance to allow for a 6-foot tall combination stone and wrought iron fence on State Highway 28 at 0 feet from property line, subject to the conditions of approval as modified in Attachment D and supported by the findings in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, further discussion? Roll call?
The motion again by Mr. Moss and a second by Mr. Nader. So Mr. Arcuri?
Yes.
Mr. Haber?
Yes.
Mr. Rokucci?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Sevison?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are you struggling with this one, Jim?
I'm struggling with this one.
Do you want me to do it?
Well, I guess my question would be is if there was a motion made that supported the gate, subject to it meeting the county's criteria when it's finally designed, would we then need to recreate the supporting findings and stuff for that as we speak here?
Right.
You're going to have to articulate the findings in the record to refute what staff's recommended findings are. So you'd have to go down and articulate what the special circumstances, et cetera, that would have to be done.
And you're not going to give me any help on that?
No, I'm not, based on the record.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion then, if he's done at the end there. I make a motion that we deny the variance for the proposed vehicle gate and supported by the findings in our staff report.
Second.
Okay, I guess we had enough discussion already, so roll call.
I have a motion by Mr. Rokucci and a second by Mr. Nader. So Mr. Arcuri?
Yes.
Mr. Haber?
Yes.
Mr. Rokucci?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Sevison?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
No.
Absent.
Oh, yeah. You just do it on principle.
Yes.
Did you say yes or no?
I said no.
Okay,
And Mr. Johnson?
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I think, yeah, I appreciate you coming all the way down here to present this to us and actually have a very nice project. I do have to say that our decision is final unless you want to appeal it, and you have that opportunity in 10 days if you present your appeal to the CEDRA group here in the building. Then it'll cost $581, but you do have the opportunity to appeal it to the Board of Supervisors if you'd like. Okay, so with that, thank you guys, and we'll move on to our next item.
Yeah, I think because you
What?
need to use the facilities.
Oh, you guys can take no more than 5 minutes.
Be back here at 12, or we start with that.
Are we taking a break? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll give you a few minutes to get your thoughts together.
Okay.
nice when I'm,
When you want to be.
yeah, when I want to be. Okay. I think I have a mic.
I don't think I'm, oh, there we go. I'm Crystal Jacobson with the Planning Services Division, and I'm here today to provide you with an update on the county-initiated projects that we process through the Planning Services Division. And we have what we call a long-range planning team that is actually made up of two different units or teams, consisting of what we call advanced planning, and then a new team, which is our housing and economic development team. And so I focus on the advanced planning projects, community plan updates, like the Tahoe Basin Area Plan that you were just discussing. And then Shauna Purvines, who is here today, heads up the housing and economic development, which is a new unit that we added to the Planning Services Division. And so she can answer any. I'll touch on what her team is working on, but she'll be here to answer any questions that come up. So for the advanced planning projects, we have a number of them that are ongoing. So these are projects that are currently being worked on for this fiscal year, and that we've prioritized. The first is, and I'm going to touch on all of these in more depth here on upcoming slides, but we do have who we're calling a targeted zoning text amendment to Chapter 17. It touches on a lot of different areas of the zoning ordinance. We have a climate action plan that's ongoing. Update to the Granite Bay Community Plan, transportation circulation element. We have a couple of what we call Placer Legacy projects. One is the Squaw Creek Restoration Project. Another one is the Truckee River Corridor Access Plan. We're updating the Sunset Area Plan, which includes the Placer Ranch Specific Plan. We are preparing a memorandum of understanding for the Tahoe Basin Area Plan, so that's the implementation of that. And then the Water Efficiency Landscape Ordinance, EJ touched on that earlier, was adopted by the board, so I will hit on that. And then finally, the Winery Brewery Ordinance is also underway. So as you can see, we have a lot going on with county-initiated projects. So the first is the Chapter 17, what we call a targeted ZTA. This includes various ordinance sections to really kind of clean up the ordinance or address sections that have resulted in problematic implementation. Those sections include setback and lot coverage, extension of time permitting standards, and what we're doing there is just making sure that the standards for extension of time are consistent with state standards. Cell tower standards, some minor tweaks there, home occupation standards, and nuisance abatement. So George Rosasco in our office is currently working on this project, and he's going through the max circuit right now. I think he's made it through, about half of the max. And we'll continue to do that and then bring it forward to your commission for review. And we anticipate that by, I'm not sure which hearing, if we have a targeted hearing date, but we were hoping to get before the end of the year. And then to the board in early 2018 for a final approval of those amendments. The Climate Action Plan identifies programs and policies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and also strategies to maximize economic benefits related to energy efficiency and also CEQA streamlining. So it would really set some standards that would help projects as they come in and they're doing their greenhouse gas and air quality review. It does build upon some existing greenhouse gas emission inventories that we had previously prepared for the county back in 2011 and 2012. We had done one for government operations and then also a community-wide one looking at the entire unincorporated area of the county. And so the first step in the Climate Action Plan is to update those, so that effort is underway. And those will be released in November. We will hold a Planning Commission workshop at that time to report out on the findings of the updated inventories. And then we'll also hold an evening workshop in Tahoe and one in Auburn as well to report out on the findings and solicit some input. We do expect a draft Climate Action Plan in summer of 2018, and then a final expected in early 2008. Final expected in late 2018 or early 2019. So this will be going on for this next year and probably be before your commission a number of times for input. So the Granite Bay Community Plan Transportation Circulation, this is a technical update. This program is really being led by Department of Public Works and Facilities with CEDRA assisting. And it is to address Senate Bill 743, which is related to vehicle miles traveled. So the idea here is that from a CEQA perspective, we're trying to move away from level of service within the CEQA analysis and develop metrics to address VMT reduction. And so this update will address the level of service standards that are in the community plan for roadway segments, and then also focus on metrics for VMT. It does not include updates to land use, so it's not a full-blown update to the plan. The traffic study is currently underway and expected to be released in November, alongside a notice of preparation for an environmental document. So we are preparing a focused EIR on that. We expect the draft EIR and the draft update in the spring, and then a final EIR and final update expected in the fall of 2018.
At some point when you get to the draft or even the final, frequently in Granite Bay, traffic is an issue. So I guess it won't be the Planning Commission's really involvement in the hearing, but it would be.
It will be.
It will be?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
okay. That's what I was going to ask for.
Yeah.
Not that we.
Well, you got
it.
it.
I don't know if we vote for it or not, but so we understand. Do we vote on it too?
Yep. You'll make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors.
Oh, okay. So we'll get a better chance to understand.
Absolutely. And then when the draft environmental document is out, you'll see that along with the final. So there'll be a couple of times for you to weigh in on that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And then we're also happy to come and give updates, as needed as well, in addition to those hearings.
Okay.
Okay, so the next one is the Squaw Creek Restoration Plan, and like I said earlier, this is really implementation of the county's Placer Legacy Program. So we do a lot of restoration work throughout the county, and this is one project that's ongoing. This is a coordinated work program with Friends of Squaw Creek, and the restoration includes restoration to the channels, reconnecting floodplains, and mitigating wetlands. We've actually been working on this for some time, focusing on different areas of Squaw Creek. And so it's kind of a continued effort that's been ongoing for a number of years. And so the technical studies to support environmental review is currently underway, and we do expect an environmental document in early 2018. It'll probably be a mitigated neg deck for the restoration work.
Crystal, how does this effort tie into the approved plan for Squaw Valley?
The Squaw Valley plan had a restoration component, and so
Right.
we are working with the developers there on restoration efforts. What you see here is mostly restoration that's kind of outside of the Squaw Valley Village area. Okay. So we're working on restoration efforts for the entire creek area, not just the area near the village. But any restoration up there is a coordinated effort as well.
Okay, thank you.
In the beginning.
In the beginning. I've heard
You were there. When we did the Squaw Valley plan, we didn't do any zoning or precise zoning. We just had the general plan as a guide. And that is, as far as I know, is still the case today. Are we ever going to go back to a different system, or are we just going to continue what we have?
With the Squaw Valley plan, we don't have the Squaw Valley community plan on our list in terms of prioritized work programs. Not at this juncture.
Okay.
But it is an old plan for sure, and we've had some folks request that it be put on our list. We have a lot of community plans, and we have 14 community plans, and so a lot of them are old and in need of updates. So we try to tackle, the ones we put them on a list and get to them when we can, when we have resources. But that one is not up at the top of the list.
That's not part of what you're trying to do here.
No, this is just in the plan. It does talk about restoration of the creek, so this is just implementation of that plan, implementation of the Squaw Creek or Squaw Valley specific plan, and then also just implementation of the legacy program.
What's the status of the Squaw Valley plan today? Is it in court, or is it just working its way?
You're talking about the ski area plan?
Well, the Squaw Valley plan.
Yeah.
It was challenged, when they came out with a new plan and we approved it, and then it was challenged, and I haven't heard much about it since then.
I know that, it's still, I think.
Still in litigation,
right.
So we don't have any update, though.
I don't know
Not
any
resolved.
specifics.
Don't you ever go to court? Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so the next is the Sunset Area Plan and Plaza Ranch specific plan. So this is an update to the county's existing 1997 Sunset Industrial Area Plan, which is being renamed to the Sunset Area Plan. It's intended to achieve the county's long-term vision of promoting economic development and job growth in the region. Again, it does include the Plaza Ranch specific plan, and really the reason for that is that the board felt it provided critical backbone infrastructure to actually achieve the vision within Sunset, but it also includes a roughly 300-acre satellite campus of Sac State University, and so our board felt that there was a huge public benefit to processing the specific plan alongside the area plan. So it's really kind of nested within the work program. The Plaza Ranch specific plan technical studies are complete. Environmental review for the plan is currently underway. The Sunset Plan documents that are completed to date are the existing conditions report, an economic market analysis, opportunities and constraints report, a preferred land plan, and then infrastructure studies. And so those documents are available on our website with exception to the infrastructure studies, which are being used by our environmental consultant at this time. But the rest of those documents are up on our web. Here is just, I wanted to provide you a copy of the land plan. So what you can see here, yes, this works. This is the Plaza Ranch site right here that nests within the greater Sunset area. I will point out that the Sunset plan, the current plan right now comes right through here. And the board directed staff to expand it because this is one property owner here. So we wanted to encompass all of their property holdings here. So this is about roughly 325 acres that is now included in the plan. So we'll have an amendment to the boundary of the Sunset Area Plan.
Where's Fitiment Road on that plan?
Yeah.
Fitiment is right here.
Oh, wow.
So we have new land use designations, and what we'll be doing is coming before your commission at a later date, not too far out here, and give you a comprehensive update of this plan and Plaza Ranch.
Does the Sunset Area Plan and the specific plan, are they going to come forward at the same time?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Crystal, everything that's sort of north of Plaza Ranch, is that designated somewhat? I mean, I can't read those because they're too small.
Yeah, they're all.
Is it pretty much commercial, industrial sorts of applications?
There's some industrial uses
It's
over.
not residential, is it?
So the board did direct us to look at the allowance for limited residential within the Sunset area as it relates to the employment center. So it would be kind of workforce housing that would support those types of employment type uses that we'd like to see there. Okay. So for example, this area right here is an innovation, what we're calling innovation center, and that's where we'd like to see kind of large employment campuses. And so there would be an allowance for limited residential as it supports that use. But these are all new land use designations. This area right in here is what we're calling entertainment mixed use. The casino's right here, and so there would be some opportunity for what we're calling it an attraction district. Those types of amenity or uses that would draw folks in, and that's why it's called the entertainment mixed use district. This one right here is IC Innovative Center.
Even the one on the left over there, the one that we added?
This one too, except this one right here is going to have a development reserve or urban reserve over it. So these folks would have to come in with a specific plan in the future.
Okay. Crystal, in the future now, industrial's been dropped. It's just now referred to as Sunset.
Correct.
Right.
There are still some industrial uses, and we're maintaining some industrial zoning here, right in here. But we're kind of shifting away from solely industrial and moving towards a little more of the innovation type of uses is what we're looking at. So just in terms of where we're at now, the tasks that are underway, we are preparing a technical odor evaluation summary. So we hired someone to look at all the evaluations that have been done at the landfill and provide some and summarize those evaluations and look at what other jurisdictions are doing in terms of the proximity of residential uses to a landfill. We do have a policy in the existing plan right now that addresses the proximity, and so we're looking to perhaps refine that policy. But what we wanted to do is take a look at what other jurisdictions are doing in those landfills in terms of technology around addressing odor. So that's underway right now. The draft area plan policy document, we do have an administrative draft plan right now that's in and currently under review. We're also preparing a draft implementing zoning set of zoning regulations similar to what we did in Tahoe, and so that is under development right now. And it will contain draft corridor design standards and guidelines similar to what we did in the Tahoe area. And then same with the Placer Ranch specific plan. The specific plan development standards and design guidelines are actually submitted and being reviewed by staff right now. And then there's a couple of joint documents that are being prepared for both the Sunset and Placer Ranch specific plan. And those include the Capital Improvement and Finance Plan, which is also underway, and then the EIR. So at the end of the day, we'll have an EIR that addresses the Sunset Plan at a programmatic level and addresses Placer Ranch specific plan at a project level. So just like the Tahoe Basin Plan that we did with the Tahoe City Lodge, it'll be set up really similar to that, where you'll have one document that will analyze both projects. And then in terms of next steps and timelines, we were trying to shoot for a December workshop before your commission. That might push out, because of the holidays, that might push out to January. We do expect a draft environmental document and draft plans expected in March, and then a final expected in late July. And we have targeted Planning Commission and board deliberations in August and September. So it's an aggressive schedule, but we're making really, really good progress on this.
If we're going to meet in January, I think we should be up at the lake.
That's an offer.
I'm used to coming up to the lake, so we can do that.
I second that.
Stay home.
I'll go for that.
Okay, on to the lake. So the Tahoe Basin Area Plan, with the so again, that was adopted by our board in December of 2016, and then by TRPA in January of 2017, that should say 17, I'm sorry. And TRPA does require a memorandum of understanding after the adoption of all area plans in the basin. And it's really to outline the county's responsibility as it relates to permitting authorities. So they do delegate more authority to local governments for land use permitting. And so that MOU has been prepared. It was approved by our board on July 25th, and it is now going through the TRPA review process and going before the governing board in October. So this is another Placer Legacy project, the Truckee River Corridor Access Plan. We're pretty excited about this. It includes construction of a multi-purpose trail extending from Squaw Valley to Truckee. So if you're familiar with that area, we already have a multi-purpose trail from Tahoe City to Squaw Valley, and so this would then make that connection from Squaw Valley all the way to the town of Truckee and help to complete what we call a resort triangle, where we're trying to get that multi-use trail all the way between Tahoe City to Kings Beach to Truckee, and then Truckee back up to Tahoe City. So this is a big piece of it.
Is that going to stay on the railroad right away?
It weaves back and forth. Yeah, it's in some places it looks like we have a couple of different alignments outlined, but in some places there may be the need to have it within the right of way. But the idea would be that we try to move it out of the right of way where we can.
I heard, talking about the bike trail, I had heard that the North Tahoe PUD has stepped forward again now and is talking about taking phase 2 of the Dollar Point Trail. Have you heard that?
You know, I'm not sure who's taking the lead on that. Yeah.
I was kind of disturbed to hear it because the county was in line for the phase 2 as well, and then North Star would come over Sawmill Flat and meet. And it's never come to the Conservancy that I know of as an official action.
Yeah, I unfortunately don't know that.
I counted on you.
I try to keep updated on all these projects, but that one I'm not sure about. So this is a county and U.S. Forest Service. We're preparing a joint environmental document. And the environmental review, right now the plan actually has been prepared, and we're actually holding, as EJ noted, there'll be a public meeting next Wednesday on this at 4 o'clock in Truckee to solicit some input on the plan, and that's where those various different alternatives will be outlined. And then we expect the environmental review to begin right after that meeting, and then the draft EIR and EA expected in late spring.
Will that come before the commission or not?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I think it would have to come before the commission. I'm not sure. I think, yeah, because we've done that for like the Dry Creek corridor plan that we did, the Greenway plan. So yes.
I think we're going to be pretty busy next year with.
You are going to be busy. I know. Okay, the next is the Water Efficiency Landscape Ordinance. I'll just point out, as EJ said, it was approved by the board on October 3rd, so we are excited to have that one complete, and we're working on implementation now on this. The Winery Brewery Ordinance, this is an update to the county's existing ordinance adopted in 2008. Again, the goals, we've been before your commission before on this, but the goals are really to clarify the activities that would be allowed in conjunction with winery uses, and then also to streamline the permitting process. That brewery ordinance piece was included due to the growing increase in interest in the permit applications for breweries in these rural areas. So we are addressing that in this effort. Notice of preparation for the environmental document actually is being reviewed right now. It looks like we'll put that out next week. And then the draft EIR would be expected in March. Again, this one would come before your commission as well. And then the final ordinance expected in the summer. Okay, so now I'm going to touch on the housing and economic development projects that are currently underway. Again, this is really a new unit or new effort that we have been undertaking, led by Shauna. And so the items that I'll talk about is a county-wide housing unit, affordable housing program, our assistance in the Placer County Government Center Master Plan, also the regional university. There's amendments that are being proposed there on the specific plan, and then the secondary unit zoning text amendment. I really won't touch on that because I think EJ discussed that with you earlier. So in terms of the county-wide housing unit, this is a unit that was developed recently, which we are a part of. So our board prioritized the development of an inclusive and all-around approach to address the housing needs. And so this new unit was formed in the county. It includes staff from our office, so Sean is a part of that effort. Also includes Health and Human Services, Department of Public Works and Facilities, the County Executive Office, and Economic Development. So the idea really is to take an all-around, inclusive approach to address the housing need here in Placer County. And so they're meeting on a regular basis and putting together strategies to address housing. And part of that is they are preparing a housing program, which I'll touch on in just a minute. Well, let's see, what else? Oh, I wanted to point out just this Mountain Housing Council that you see here at the bottom. That's a part of this effort as well. This was formed up in Tahoe. And so our housing unit folks are involved in this, and it's to address housing specifically in the Tahoe region. And so our board directed us to participate in that effort as well.
Is there any concern about getting money into these types of things to aid the development and to make it cost effective that isn't going to be vulnerable to the state taking again? Last time we had pots of money set aside and started community plans, and the state of California came along and took it.
Right. One of the things you'll see here, what we're doing with the housing program, is to develop a housing investment strategy. So they are looking at new funding sources or opportunities to try to get units constructed. But you're right, we did lose a big pot of dedicated money that was previously used for housing.
Crystal, can I just say something that, this is obviously, again, a really hot topic, not just here in Placer County, but across the state. It's affordable housing and workforce housing. And I was just talking to Steve and Shauna earlier about this because when you hear politicians in Sacramento complain about not having enough affordable housing in California, but then everything they do works against it. They keep bringing up more policies, more laws. I think one of them is, for example, is the governor's net zero, which is that by 2020 they want to see all new housing as far as energy use, it's at zero. And the cost of implementing that is just horrendous. And so what I'm trying to get to is that there isn't much we can do about the craziness that comes out of Sacramento, but there are things that we can do here to try to do as best we can. And I want to commend our CEDRA director, Steve, because one of the things that he's implemented since he's joined the county is that he has pulled in all of the different agencies that are involved in building, that would be making decisions related to building, and also that all of the development and building community, and bringing them together to find out how can we do things better in the county to make your process easier, because time is money to everybody. And if we can make that process work better, that's to everybody's advantage, and so that it can cut some of these costs out. So I wasn't aware of this. I just found out about it recently. So I wanted to commend Steve for, again, doing this, because I think it's the one thing that we can do, that we can try to face here in the county as we kind of push those headwinds from Sacramento. So just wanted to make
Yeah, no, thank you.
Are you getting off your soapbox now?
Yes, I
So the affordable housing program, our board did direct us to move forward and prepare the housing program, and it is supported by a housing element policy B9, which is to consider this. So we are preparing the housing program that's currently underway. It would include a land supply assessment, preparation of development standards, requirement assessment, and jurisdiction comparison. So taking a look at what other jurisdictions are doing. And also identifying policy and code amendments in support of housing and economic development. And so Shauna may speak to this if you have specific questions, but really looking at our policy and our code to find out if there are barriers or anything we can do here in Placer County to make modifications where needed to ease in the development of housing. And then they're also, again, developing an affordable housing investment strategy. So they are looking at a Planning Commission workshop for December, I think it's the 14th. At your December meeting, Shauna will go in a little more depth into this housing program. And then another item that they're working on is the regional university specific plan. So there is a specific plan amendment that has been submitted. It would be to accommodate Warwick University, their planned programming. And the specific plan amendment would provide for on-campus housing. And also, and this is it should say relocation of the neighboring commercial site. So we're expecting this to go before the Planning Commission and the board in the spring. But really this is, the reason that Shauna's team is involved in this is it's directly related to economic development and housing in the county. And so she's tracking this and working closely with the planner who's working on this project. And then finally, the secondary unit ZTA, EJ hit on this earlier, so I won't go into detail on this, except that it will be back before the board at their October, I think, 24th meeting, not the 20th. They're meeting on the 23rd and the 24th, but I think they're taking this one up on the 24th. Okay. So that sums up yes.
Maybe I dozed off for a minute. Did you address the government center?
I did not. Did I miss a slide? I missed a slide. I'm sorry. So the government center master. I put this together really fast. My apologies.
I guess you were asleep.
It's not here. I think I missed it. Yeah, I missed it. I did.
I do have a question.
So the government center master plan is an effort that's being led by. It's being led by our Department of Public Works and Facilities.
That's not nice.
And so it basically is master planning the DeWitt Center here. And so what they're looking at is kind of a comprehensive approach to changing land use and zoning, actually, on the DeWitt Center. And so we've been involved in that for a couple of different reasons. One is that they are looking at affordable housing for the master plan, including areas for affordable housing, but not just affordable housing, also other housing products. So just a variation of housing types within the master plan area. And so we've been working with them on that, to strategizing on kind of where we'd see the housing, where we'd like to see it. It also includes the development of additional county facilities here on the DeWitt Center master plan. But we've been looking at it from a land use designation perspective and zoning, and looking at the development standards specifically related to the code sections to try to kind of remove those barriers so that we can get that type of housing on the ground.
One question that kind of runs through my mind with regards to this is kind of getting into philosophy here, but once government's got some land, if they give it up and you need some land in the future, then you have to go out and spend megabucks to get it back. But at any rate, I don't know, I guess for like affordable housing, if the land base stays in county ownership, that's one thing, but if it's transferred to private citizens, then the county loses the ability to use that land in the future. And then the other question I would have, and you don't have to answer these are just questions about the plan that I'm having. And then, we've approved several subdivisions around this immediate area. And it seems like there's a problem up here in Auburn, because maybe it's getting money or whatever, but these areas, we keep extending them, or else they kind of sit fallow. On the airport road, there's one where they've modified other land, but it's been fallow for a long time. On Atwood, there's a couple. We just approved another one on Joger. And so the question you come up where the county is providing housing on DeWitt, then are we competing with some of the private developments that have had trouble getting running? And so there's just a couple questions I have. I guess it's probably at this forum. That's all I'm saying. But at any rate, that's a couple of areas that kind of make me puzzle a little bit.
Thanks. I will point out that the Government Center Master Plan will come before your commission for a recommendation to the board. So you will be seeing a presentation, a more in-depth presentation on that project.
Okay. Will that be when the draft EIR?
The draft EIR, and then again for final
because there were three options of the plans that were originally kind of considered that Williams and Patton came up with. And so now I guess they've combined those three, taking sort of input from the community into one, and that's what they're moving forward with, is this one now that they've developed. And maybe it's just because I have a selfish interest because I live here in North Auburn, but it would have been helpful to probably as you're kind of going through that, at least as an informational item, just to let the commission know what was going on with that, in case we had any input as it relates to other projects that we're considering in North Auburn as well. I mean, I just think it would be helpful to have known exactly what's the whole vision for the future.
Right. And I'll point out again, this is a project that's being led by Department of Public Works and Facilities. We came into the project a little late, just because, it wasn't something that was being run through our office. But we've been engaging with them for probably the last 6 months or so, 6 to 9 months, I would say. It's certainly something that we could request that we come before your commission earlier than the draft, when the draft EIR comes out, just to provide you with an update of what that plan entails.
At least from my perspective, not a lengthy sort of presentation, but just kind of a high overview of this is what we're doing and where we're headed, and it would have been helpful, I think, as they go through the process.
Yeah, we'll relay that back, and if that doesn't work for them, we could certainly come ourselves and highlight just the key concepts that are included in that plan.
This is a big impact. You're talking about 200 acres or somewhere in that area to the North Auburn area, and that's a huge impact.
Yes, great. And then finally, I just wanted to point out that we are beginning to kind of map out what the work program would look like for next year. And a lot of these projects, will be, the idea is that they would be complete either by the end of this fiscal year or the end of the next calendar year. And so one of the items that we are anticipating is a comprehensive update to our general plan, so that you may see that, the next fiscal year, you may see updates or reports out on that as well. So that's all I have, unless you have any other.
Any other comments or questions?
Thank
Okay,
you.
well, thank you, Kristen.
Uh-huh.
That was very good.
What's Alpine Sierra subdivision? Is that just a new prospectus?
That's what we're going to go over next.
Yeah.
That's for your reading and going.
You got some reading to
Right.
do.
Yeah, so I forgot to mention,
Memorize that. You gotta read.
you were provided copies of the draft EIR, so that's in preparation of the hearing on the 26th.
Okay, well,
Lots of reading
surprising
material.
you a little bit. Okay, is that it for our commission?
All right, fine.
Okay,
What a
thank you,
wonderful
folks.
day.